Thank you for joining us during lunch. We have a very special panel today. This is an integrative immune panel, and we're going to be discussing how to stay healthy through the fall and winter from 5 perspectives that are slightly different, but also overlapping. We know that integrative health, a lot of integrative health is synergistic. So just kind of going from left to right as we see the screen here, Jen is one of our integrative and functional nutritionists, and she's also the genius behind the scenes, often with marketing director too. So she's here on the panel today. So really glad she's on here. And Christine is actually also a practice administrator, but she also is a very knowledgeable in herbal medicine as well, and she's on here too. So welcome both Jen and Christine. It's very exciting for you to be on here. Corey, as many of you know, is one of our acupuncturists. He is a healer. He does meditation, Wim Hof breathing, and he's also a master woodworker, if you didn't know that about Corey. And Corey has shaved his beard just for this immune panel, possibly or possibly not, but for other reasons. And we also have Shannon Lavery, who is a registered yoga teacher, and I believe also teaching meditation as well. As part of the yoga for sure, and really happy to have Shannon on as well. So thank you all for joining us at lunch here and spending your valuable time with us. So we're going to be talking, a lot of this is going to be interactive with us. So really it's going to be about your questions, your discussion. We're going to kind of talk about this as we continue to create this community here. We've been doing this for about almost maybe 5 or 6 months now. So I just wanted to say some gratitude, for all of you kind of showing up every week. And for those of you who are new to this, welcome. So we're going to start really quickly with COVID-19 updates. Cases are actually declining a little bit in Maryland. We know that there's no FDA-approved treatments yet for coronavirus, but from an integrative perspective, there's many ways to optimize the immune system. And multiple helpful perspectives that we'll talk about today and inputs can actually nourish the body and nourish the mind and spirit and send a message of safety to the cells. And there's actually something called the cell danger response, which is a pre-programmed genetic inflammatory response that is a result of perceived or real danger. And that actually goes to your cell membranes and to your cells, and it basically leads to this inflammation and it stresses out the immune system. Conversely, there's a cell safety response. So what can we do to send a message of safety to the cells, what we call building the terrain, building the internal environment so that you are healthy and well internally. So we talk about lifestyle medicine, functional medicine, talk about nutrition. One of the most powerful ways to influence the immune system is through eating real food, and there's different types of foods, different types of nutrition, both from a physical nutrition as well as emotional, spiritual nutrition. There's also herbal medicine. We know that most of our even Western medicines originated from plants. And so we know that plants have a really special relationship with our DNA and actually can influence our DNA independent of what's called epigenetics. So we can talk about that if you want. Acupuncture is another really, I think, 5,000-year-old way to improve health and the immune system. I personally feel that that's one of the best ways in integrative modalities to help the immune system. And then yoga, another ancient but yet modern tradition, a cutting edge tradition, because we know that yoga is also not only asanas and poses and also with pranayama, but also, and Shannon will talk a lot more about this, but it's also a whole system of health as well in terms of Ayurveda, which we're going to also have next week. But yoga is part of that system of health and wellness and of union. So just kind of curious, what are your favorite ways? And we can, this won't be a total discussion yet, but if you could just put in the chat box, what are your favorite ways listening out there to build your terrain? I think that would be really cool to kind of hear that. And, we know that there's different ways to build the terrain, but one thing we all agree on, I think, is that we just need to get outside more. So maybe after lunch, get outside. You don't have to hike a mountain, but you can go out inside your neighborhood, get some fresh air, get some earthing. That's really helpful. I wanted to do this in October because there's symptoms of COVID, cold, and flu that overlap. So we know that with colds, people typically have stuffy nose, runny nose, sore throat, body aching, sneezing. But with COVID, people have dry cough, fever, not as much runny nose, not as much stuffy nose, and they might have loss of smell. Loss of smell is one of the big clues that there might be COVID. People can also have flu-like symptoms. So COVID does overlap with the flu season in terms of sore throat, shortness of breath, headaches and body aches, and exhaustion. Fever is more common in COVID and flu, but not in common colds. And just to go through this again, there's some vaccine trials going, and you can put in there if you want a vaccine, you know, when it comes out, if it comes out, if it's considered safe and effective. I put some links in there if people are interested in learning about the data. And flu vaccine, there's some data here about research data about how it helps, why it helps. We do have the flu vaccine here at CIH that is mercury-free, egg-free, preservative-free. So if you're interested in that, please contact the CIH main inbox. It is approved for 18 and older, this particular one called Flublok Quadrivalent. And then we have a group visit coming up, which is next Tuesday, which I'm really excited about. This is our second one on optimizing heart health, but it also talks about cardiometabolic syndrome and leaky artery, basically. We talk about leaky gut a lot, but leaky artery is part of that, and vascular inflammation as the true cause of heart issues a lot of times. And then this is our fall schedule now, with October kicking off the fall. So today we have the Integrative Immune Panel, staying healthy through the fall and winter, with all of us here. Next Thursday, we have Ayurvedic medicine with a leader in Ayurvedic medicine, Dr. Sirachand Khalsa, and she'll be doing some demonstrations and discussions about Ayurveda, so really excited about that as well. And then on Thursday, October 15th, we have Liz Baer and Jared Urchek. So Liz, as you know, is at CIH, and Jared is a mycologist, a mushroom expert. So they're going to be talking about how to treat hard to treat mental and emotional disorders with psychedelic mushrooms. There's actually a lot of research about that going. Phase 3 clinical trials at the FDA. And then on Thursday, at the last Thursday in October, October 29th, we have Dr. Grady Kaiser, who also is at CIH on Fridays, and he is going to be talking about, and we'll be learning from him about osteopathic medicine. So this is our Thriving Thursday schedule for October. Really wish to, you could come on all of these. If you can't on some of them, please watch our Facebook or our replays that we have up there. So I think there's a polling question. Yes. What habits do you typically use to support your immune system? Multiple choice, so it's not a either or. It can be any of these. So we have herbal medicine, we have yoga, we have medicine, we have supplements like vitamins, herbs, minerals, things like that, antioxidants. Then we have nutrition. We have acupuncture, breath work, and then there's others we may not have put in there. Right in the chat, red light therapy, something that comes to mind, and certainly nutrition can be divided into nutrition in general, but also IV nutrition. So these are some of the things that also come to mind. Anything that you typically put, just love to see who we have on here today and what you use, what's worked for you to support your immune system. Important to vote in this election year. Please vote for what you do to support your immune system. Okay, supplements. So supplements is the leading, and I think supplements, we all use supplements. Interestingly, supplements are supplemental to all these other things, but I think we're all kind of have supplements, so that's good. And a lot of people use herbal medicine, yoga, nutrition, acupuncture, breathwork. So everything is on represented, which is great. And then if you want to chat in there. So thank you so much for participating in that. And then we're going to do a Q&A about how to support the healthy immune system. Jen, is there more to this? Yes. I don't know if I could say.
Yeah. So
you want me to stop the share or?
Sure. Yeah. So these are just a few questions to get us started. But if you have questions for anyone listening, feel free to write them in the chat, because that's really the goal here, is for us to answer your questions from.
Yeah, and if you want to put the, if you want to say, Jen, if you want to say the questions or something, we could do that, or we could answer the chat, you know, either way as things kind of go on.
Yeah, so I think to start, it would be great to hear from each of us how we support the immune system from each of our perspectives. So we can start off with anyone here. Maybe Corey, if you have a thought to begin with for acupuncture.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Yeah, so great to be here. It's gonna be fun. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, so acupuncture, really old, the double really old tradition here. So I think the important thing about acupuncture is it's very individualized, and it's very tailored to what your sort of immune system needs to be supported with. So, you know, we know with sort of acupuncture theory, a lot of things that feed into the channels or processes in the body that feed into having a healthy immune system are primarily come from the lung, which is what circulates what we call wei qi, which is sort of a protective or defensive qi, and sort of like you could think of it as like a force field that kind of circulates around with the skin and provides sort of a fortification or a wall in defense from your environment. And so, but there's things that help that wei qi that mainly is governed by the lung, helps that support that, which is a lot of digestive channels and a lot of sort of energy channels. So the stomach and spleen and kidney, urinary bladder, those types of things. So those are sort of where we just build good qi from. And so if we're eating right and our digestive processes are working right, if we got some good sort of energy production, either cultivated through our life or, you know, have good, strong sort of constitution, all that sort of stuff can help build this good defensive qi. And so when we work with someone individually with acupuncture, it's really about sort of defining what it is for them and where, you know, their sort of hitch and their giddy up is coming from. It sort of sounded weird, but so, you know, it's because it's different, you know, nuanced with different people in different ways. You know, is it a more of a digestive process that's not sort of taken in their environment or in their food, air, water sort of things and developing that in a good qi, or do they need some sort of energetic support? You know, and then coaching around sort of which lifestyle and behaviors are really going to matter the most for them. Because, you know, life is in your behaviors and in your sort of practices, right? These sorts of immune system things aren't sort of emphasized, aren't just a, you know, a one pill or a one trick sort of thing. They're practices that get generated and built up and get stronger and developed over time. So really as a focus, as a, you know, a development of your immune system rather than just sort of turn it on and off kind of thing. You know, good sleep, good exercise. You know, we can talk a lot about sort of different behaviors. So that sort of needs to be cultivated, and then just making sure that your internal processes are working in their most efficient manner with acupuncture. So helping activate something that's not working quite as well, or unblocking something that's sort of has something in the way of it performing optimally for you, what your optimal is, you know. And so yeah, and that looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but basically ends up being needles placed in certain little points around your body to stimulate that. And yeah, hope that's sort of good breakdown for you.
Great. I think I'll go next since I'm talking already. So from a nutrition perspective, I've already seen a lot of people talking in the chat about using food as a part of a way to support their immune system, which I think is awesome. And it is really a powerful way to support your immune system because you eat multiple times a day. It's one of the best ways to really not only support your immunity, but your health in general. And I know that I've seen already people talking about really focusing on whole foods, lots of nutrient dense foods that are really colorful. Color is a really great indicator of antioxidants, which are really important for your immune system. So focusing on real food and limiting the processed food, that's a really big point. The other thing, which I think we just had a question from Yolanda, is about as the seasons change, what can we do? Another great thing from a nutrition perspective is matching your food with the season change. So focusing on the foods that are in season right now, because food is information, and that's one of the ways that we get our body gets information is the kinds of food that you're eating. So, you know, like squash is in season right now, that is telling your body we're heading into winter, which can help your immune system. So those are a few general things to start with.
I can go next if you like.
Go for it.
Hi, I'm Christine. Thank you all for allowing me to represent the herbal community here today. As we head into the fall season, it's in Ayurveda the season of Vata, so it's a season of air. And so things are starting to dry up, and how that relates to immunity is that our mucosal membranes start to dry up too if we're not careful. So adding a humidifier, if your air is dry, helps prevent mucosa from drying up. Nasya oil is an Ayurvedic practice. That's Nasya, is an Ayurvedic practice that we use in herbalism to help with the nose, keeping the nose moist during the season of Vata or any time in the winter, fall and winter. Stress, managing stress is something that we do, that we focus on in the herbal community with adaptogens. adaptogens prevent cortisol-induced mitochondrial dysfunction, so they support the immune system in that way, using things like eleuthero and holy basil, any kind of adaptogen, your herbal practitioner can guide you in that direction. Decreasing sugar, getting enough sleep, staying in touch with nature. Chronic, there are herbs for chronic prevention of chronic infection, and also for acute. So if there are questions later, I'm happy to answer that. But that's the skinny on a quick lowdown on herbal medicine's perspective of prevention.
Hi everyone, my name is Shannon and I'm grateful to be here today. And I just want to take a moment to invite you all to feel your feet, whether you're standing or you're seated, just to like feel your connection to the ground, to the floor, and to just close your eyes for a moment. We're not going to be here for long. And let's all just take a deep breath together. Inhale, you can reach the arms up. Grow tall, feel your spine get taller, reach up. And then exhale, draw your palms to heart center. If you need a little extra nurturing in this moment, you can place your hands on your heart and just arrive. Letting your eyes open whenever you feel ready. And that is something that I do multiple times throughout my day, whether I'm teaching yoga or not. And it's something that I think is so important to do, just to ground ourselves and to arrive and to just pause, because there's so much going on in the world, and especially being in Vata season, like in this season of air, and we just need to continuously keep grounding. And yoga's a great way to do that. It can be something as simple as taking a deep breath and just returning to the moment. So that's one simple practice that you can do multiple times throughout your day. And I invite you to do that. Another way to really help shift and prevent flu or just stay healthy and vital during this time is to I encourage you to do the 6 movements of the spine every single day. So that's your lateral stretches from side to side. And you can do that while at work, you can do that in the morning, and then to do your spinal twist, which is where you reach up first and then you twist looking over your shoulder. And that's really great to keep the digestive system healthy and to get rid of just anything that's in the body or just anything that's not serving you. And the last one is, it feels good, right? So I'm doing this multiple times throughout my day, and it's important for not only to help me keep my stress levels lower, no matter how crazy my day is, but also just to keep the body healthy and like all the bones and muscles and all that good stuff in there. And the last thing is flexion and extension. So that's when you're doing cat-cow if you've done yoga before. I want to do this with y'all just because it feels really good. We're going to do open and close the gate. So grab onto opposite elbows and then inhale as you lift the arms above your head. And then exhale, drawing those arms towards your belly button. Chin comes towards your chest. And then repeating that multiple times. Let's do that 5 times together. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, lower. 4 more. Inhale. Three more. Last one. Open up. And then exhale, come back. Find yourself in your neutral, comfortable, seated or standing position. And I just want to mention one thing before we open up to Q&A is so much of what we are doing and so much that's important about yoga is the connection of movement and breath. So breath plays a huge role in this practice. I always say your breath is your guide, your breath is your teacher. So really allowing that to guide you and to help you ground and to also help warm things up to this in this season to keep the body and the immune system happy and vital. And that's all I have for right now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shannon. That was amazing. I know a lot of people are commenting about that. Thank you for sharing that with us and guiding us and leading us through that. I would say from a functional medicine perspective, you know, it's interesting because it's not like medicine the way we think about, oh, take a pill, right? That was actually the least popular of the of the ones today, of like, let's take a pill for the immune system. It can be helpful, but you know, really looking at more of an overall, how are we providing safety to the cells? Is it through yoga? Is it through meditation? Is it through acupuncture? Is it through cognitive behavioral therapy? Is it through getting outside and earthing? You know, what are we, or is it eating seasonally, locally? Like, how are we, because at the end of the day, our bodies want to heal, our bodies want to be well, and we just have to provide the environmental inputs that match the genetics for us, right? So from a functional medicine perspective, there's different types of white cells, and basically the white cells can change into this like almost like this like nice dog versus like rabid dog kind of thing. So, you know, kind of like a anti-inflammatory versus pro-inflammatory type of white cells. So all these environmental and lifestyle and really powerful practices can either turn on or off inflammation. And breathing is actually one of the biggest things to do, because we know that in seconds, thousands of genes are turned on that would reduce inflammation just from breathing, even from holding the breath, doing either pranayama breath, 4-7-8 breathing, Wim Hof breathing, even, you know, anything like that's going to bring that oxygen in and bring that safety. Sandy said, let's add chanting to the, yeah, so sound, yeah, thank you. That's really amazing too. Sound is healing to the cells, and we know that there's certain frequencies that are, which I have to research more about, but there's certain frequencies that are antiviral. There's certain frequencies that are antibacterial. So we did have Trish on from Tucson a few weeks ago, and she was demonstrating that, doing sound baths and her own human voice, you know, sound healing. So I do notice that, you know, when you do that, you're basically activating your immune system. I would say also from a gut microbiome point of view, you know, ideally, if you can, you're eating fermented foods, starchy foods that would help the bacteria, good bacteria in the body make short-chain fatty acids that would help your immune system by helping the T regulatory cells. So I just want to say there's a lot in there, but really listening to your body, connecting back to nature is that's the bottom line, you know, in terms of just strengthening and balancing the immune system. So thank you. I'm really honored and glad to be part of this as well, this panel. And Jen, do we have other questions, or other questions we want to go through, or is it more open to Q&A now?
Yeah, I mean, anyone's welcome to ask a question. I thought it would be good to go through some of the typical cold and flu symptoms. So like congestion, coughing, everything that is the unpleasant part of being sick, and kind of what we can do using these different modalities to support that. So let's maybe start with congestion, because I know that that's a frustrating one and can be really, especially with allergies too, that's a big one. So if anyone wants to start there.
I'll say one thing, sorry, just from the medical side. I mean, you got to make sure there's no, if it's chronic, then, you know, it's like, is it seasonal allergies? Is it candida? Is it nasal obstruction, or, you know, different things? Or is it a cold? You know, is it a virus, or is it even COVID or something? But, you know, typically nasal congestion and stuffy nose, runny nose is not going to be COVID. That's less likely. It's more likely to be a common cold. There are other types of coronaviruses, between 4 to 6 other types of coronaviruses that are common colds, other type of viruses. But, you know, if it's a regular kind of common cold, then definitely we think about zinc, vitamin C, maybe NAC to help with biofilms and reduce mucus, so N-acetylcysteine, which can help upregulate glutathione, and then certainly some sort of either neti pot or Neomed, you know, something to irrigate the nose, the nostrils, is kind of where we would start. And if someone's eating a lot of, I guess you can cover that with nutrition. If something more inflammatory that they might be sensitive to, you would potentially want to remove that from the diet at that point.
Right, yeah, there can definitely be food sensitivities, which you can work with a nutritionist to figure that kind of stuff out. I saw a question from Bruce who said, are supplements processed foods? Which is an interesting question. My perspective would be that supplements are not a food. They don't substitute for food, and that's an important thing to remember. They are truly supplements, so they're something that help you in addition to a really good quality diet to begin with. So I wouldn't categorize them as a processed food, but they should not replace food, if that makes sense. And I would also throw out there for a lot of typical cold and flu symptoms, onion and garlic are really great for a few different reasons. They are not only helpful for the microbiome, like Dr. Wong was saying, but they also have some antimicrobial properties themselves. And then I think I saw someone in the chat mention something called fire cider. And that is a great recipe. You can Google fire cider and find a lot of different recipes for that, but it's a really awesome tonic, essentially, that has a lot of really great anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antimicrobial, lots of good things like garlic and onion, turmeric. It's a whole bunch of things in there, and it's a fun thing to make with your kids or just for yourself to have throughout the winter.
I'd like to add for congestion, so in Ayurveda, that's a kapha condition, so that's indicative of too much heaviness, earth, water imbalance. And so combating that with things that foods and plants that are adding heat to the body to dry the congestion would be things like ginger tea. Dry ginger actually has more heat and is more powerful for this purpose than fresh ginger is. Cinnamon, cayenne pepper, pine bark, any of the things that are going to create heat are going to dry the congestion and help you feel better in the immediate. You can add honey and garlic as well. I have one of my herbal mentors makes this really yummy honey, garlic honey. So she takes organic garlic cloves and she puts it in the local honey and lets it sit for 3 to 6 months, and it's this beautiful medicine that tastes good that you can add to your herbal teas, also antimicrobial, as Jen mentioned.
I'm muted. I have a question for you, Christine. What do you feel like is a good place to start with herbs in terms of like being antiviral or antimicrobial? I know that there's a lot of individuality with it all, but where can you start with that? Because I know that's a really big world to get into.
It's a huge world, and it really depends on the person and their constitution and any medications that may be on. So you should always consult your practitioner before you get started on herbs. But just some general things that I go to that I recommend to my friends and family as we're heading into Vata season, cold and flu season. Just amp up things like elderberries are really good. They're good just as a preventative. They're also good for chronic and acute infections. Dosage is the key there. So just for prevention would be maybe a teaspoon of elderberries and 8 ounces of water. They should be cooked though to get the medicine out for the most part. It's what we call a decoction, which is different from an infusion, which is an infusion is where you just would add water and let it sit like a regular cup of tea. But a decoction is actually bringing the plant medicine to a boil and letting it simmer for about 20 minutes. But a cup of that or so a day as a preventative is good. And then of course, increasing the dose if the infection is chronic or acute, depending. Astragalus is also another go-to that I would recommend for my friends and family. Again, consult your practitioner to make sure it's good for you, but it's immunomodulating and it's good for either before or after, but not while you're sick. So it's a good preventative, and it's also good as a nutritive to help you after in that depleted state after you're sick. Yeah, so those would be the two that I would want to talk about to my friends and family.
I'd like to just add on really quick while we're on the topic of congestion and sinuses, how beneficial doing heart openers can be. So that's when you're opening the chest, you're opening your lungs. And I think that even just to show you one example that's pretty easy is you can clasp your hands behind your back or grab onto whatever's available. Maybe it's opposite elbows and just roll the shoulders up and back and feel your heart opening towards the sky. Maybe you're gently lifting your chin And then just by doing that pose, you're opening your lungs and you're helping to create more space for air to come in. And as we can imagine, as the season, as the air gets colder outside, our bodies are more natural to tense up, just due to the colder winter. So doing regular heart openers like that one can help to like keep the airflow and not get things blocked.
Corey, do you have any, you might be ready to bounce in with this, but
Yeah,
any
a couple
breathing exercises that you would recommend?
Oh yeah, we can talk about some breathing exercises too. I was going to mention a few points that might be good to sort of massage if you're having some congestion issues before we sort of move on from congestion. So there's a couple sort of tried and true sort of favorites. I guess we could start up on the face. There's one on the side of the nose, sort of where the nostril flares out a bit and where that meets the smile line is sort of a good sort of guide for you. So if you go in on the smile line, which is just sort of a crease where my cheek, if you can sort of accentuate it there, and where the flare of the nostrils. So as you sort of find the flare, go out to the crease, push in there. You're looking for like a sensitive spot on either side. If you find a sensitive spot that's tender, sort of just get into it a little bit, don't overdo it. And any of these sort of acupressure things, check in with yourself, see how it makes you feel. You tend to get a headache or feel sort of funny, just back off on it. It's hard to really overdo these with pressure like this. But another one that would be really good is large intestine 4. So you just sort of sort of pinch your fingers, kind of come up between the thumb and the pointer finger until you find the joint where those two. The name of the point is joining the valleys. So you literally like go up the valley until you start to get to the base of the mountain where the two sort of bones protrude there. And so just kind of come up in there. That might be very tender. You can find a spot to really get in on that tender spot and then work with that a little bit. Another good one that's really good for just immune system health and building some chi is has a big stomach channel point. So on your legs, on your below your knees. So if you're seated, you take the sort of the palm of your hand here. You're going to find, just right in the palm, and let that sit on kind of the kneecap. So put the kneecap right in that palm, and let the middle finger run down the center line of the bone right there. So you're going to be able to sort of line up the palm of the hand and the middle finger, and then your ring finger is going to pop into like a little flare where the bone sort of curves a little bit, and where your sort of ring finger finds that pocket where the bone meets the tissue. There should be a little pocket around there. You can search around a couple of centimeters around to find the sort of tender spot. You can do that on both sides. And just, a couple times a day, if you remember it, just to sort of massage and stimulate that. But that's yeah, and then Bruce is talking about that, the sort of pinch your finger point for headaches. So it is the master point of the head and neck, which is why I'm bringing it up for sort of sinus congestion and things. Typically, I use it for a lot of different things. Very good for any sort of headaches, neck pain, that sort of stuff as an add-in. So you're going to hear it on a lot of sort of, your Dr. Google search for headaches. You'll find that large intestine 4. It's a very useful point. So absolutely, to your question there. And breathing exercises, like we're saying, a lot of air season and lungs, govern over the Wei Qi. So we're really focusing on the lung strength and the lungs' ability to sort of be healthy. And so breathing exercise is a great way to do that. Also a great way to find some calm and some relaxation if you're activated for your nervous system. So depending on what sort of strategy you want to adopt, you can do different breathing exercises to activate or to calm down. And so, there's, some 4-7-8 breathing. If you want to do some relaxation, there's a box breathing, which is 4 counts with an inhale, 4 count, hold, 4 count, exhale, 4 count, rest at the bottom there. That's a little more sort of, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You're going to have some kind of an active calm. So you're going to have a little bit of breath hold, which sort of helps with some CO2 and dilates some blood vessels. And you're also going to get that sort of diaphragmatic breathing, which provides a bit of relaxation. So those could be some good, real short, real easy to do things, but a really good way to to get in touch with your body and have a physical movement to help connect with your body, and then sort of focus the mind in on something that is both either, you know, automated on its own, or we can activate it and control it on our own. There's not a whole lot of body functions that do that. So it's a good one to sort of let it just ride out on its own and pay attention to it as a focus point for your meditation, to sort of take you away from all the other 95% of thoughts and activity of your mind, to give you something to focus on, or that you can actively control and sort of make it do certain things to cause different reactions. And anybody can sort of message me if we need any more to go any deeper on any of that. But there you go. We've got a few questions here also.
Yeah, I think we do have a few different questions. Let's see. I know someone did mention the garlic and onion and being an issue with digestive disorders, and that is definitely true. So, I mean, that's where you want to work with someone who can help guide you a little bit more on that one. But in general, if you do not have digestive issues that you're dealing with, garlic and onion are great to use. But it's kind of, in general, food can be very individualized. So you always want to make sure that you're doing what's best for you. And I think Tesfai just had a question for you, Corey. What are the benefits of acupuncture if you're not targeting a specific physical issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So I say this pretty much with everybody. Like, you know, there's a reason why you come in to see me, obviously. And, you know, regardless of what that sort of goal is, you know, I want to satisfy what the reason that you came in to see. But what I would tell people is that what we're really looking for are these sort of quality of life improvements that we want to see that you're on the right track, because these things are going to show, you know, there's not a whole lot of signs and signals unless we're running labs and different things, but with me and acupuncture, that you can feel that means that your internal system is working right. And so that was what we're looking for is, you know, emotional regulation. So, you know, you want to be able to move through all the emotions, but not have real sticky, burdensome ones that sort of kind of like Velcro and hard to sort of navigate through or stick around for too long. It's healthy to move through all of them and be sort of fluid with them. And then to feel more like yourself. That's a very strange one and very personalized, but, you know, if you sort of lost your spark or lost your laugh or something like that, to feel more like you do at your best, and then have more energy, sleeping better, these sort of quality of life improvements that I look for with everyone to make sure we're sort of on a trend of improvement. And so regardless of, you know, that we're sort of measuring the symptom or the condition that brought you in, we want to keep our eyes on that, but we also want to sort of take a pulse on how your general quality is improving, because that's when I know I'm really on the right track to getting, you know, the whole you better. So that's my sort of answer to that. We got a, that was yeah, is that the answer we're looking for there?
And I think there was a question just now about colloidal silvers and if there's a particular brand that stands out. So Dr. Wong, you might know more about that in particular.
Sovereign Silver or Argentine 23 are brands that are considered, you know, good in the integrative functional world for colloidal silver. A lot of times with silver, it's a little controversial. I don't use it a ton in the practice. I think it can be used for chronic Lyme or chronic infections, or even to prevent or treat potentially bacterial infections or viral infections, because it is broad spectrum antimicrobial. I think one of the questions and controversies about colloidal silver is does it get up into the brain? Because we know that colloidal silver versus the silvers that were made in the 1970s, they do get excreted by the gut based on the way they do it now. But whether or not these really tiny nanoparticles get into the brain and kind of stick around is not so clear. So I think if you want to do it for a short term, I think it's reasonable, you know, to do. But I'd certainly think, you know, people that are doing it every day, I'm not sure that's something that I would necessarily do. But I would say those are the brands I would recommend if you wanted to do that.
Great. So moving away from congestion, let's talk about things like maybe fatigue and body aches, because that can not only be a cold and flu thing, but just a general issue. So if anyone wants to start there, maybe Shannon, since I'm sure yoga has a lot that can help there.
Sure, I'll dive right into this one. So a big part of a way that I always like to start a yoga practice is, as we did in the beginning, grounding, and then some sort of breath work, as Corey started to dive into. And then we'll go into the 6 movements of the spine. And then a really great way that I like to just create energy is, especially in the morning, is by doing sun salutation. So I'm not going to do that here with you because I'm not on my mat right now, but really it's just connecting movement with breath. You're moving through a series of heart openers, of inversions, and it's really just a great way to get you out of your head, to give you a boost of energy and help get out of it. Another great way that I've found to help boost my energy, if you're tired because you've been so anxious and your body's just depleted from stress, allowing yourself to really disconnect at night and just ground by doing something, as it may seem simple, but it makes a huge impact, is doing legs up the wall and staying there for anywhere between like 5 to 10 minutes. You know your body the best, but that can have, doing that in inversion is really great to de-stress, but also just reconnect that mind and body. And one other thing, I could mention tons of poses, but if you have any questions on that, my information's here. But another thing is just going into child's pose. And that's really great way to, that's a really great pose to do at the end of the night, too, before going to bed. Those are just a few.
Great. And just to throw this in there really quickly, there was a question from Facebook. Someone said, if we get COVID, what IV therapy, vitamin treatments would you recommend?
First of all, to protect our patients and staff, unfortunately, we're not treating COVID, active COVID in our clinic with IV nutrients. However, if you found a hospital that was able to do that, which I haven't, I actually tried to do that here, and they're not really into that here. But I mean, they have studies in China, and I think they're doing things in Long Island, New York, for IV vitamin C. It's really the vitamin C that's going to help prevent the oxidation of iron going from the Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus. You want to basically reduce the oxidation of iron, and you do that with vitamin C. So there's been a lot of case reports actually that have shown that once you do that, people get out of the ICU, they survive COVID, and things like that. If it really got that severe, but certainly IV to prevent or to reduce the risk, I think is what we're looking at. IV Immunoboost, we do that here, somewhere between 2 to 25 grams of vitamin C, depending on your lab work and things like that. And then glutathione also makes sense with part of that. And then just keeping hydrated, like if you don't have access to IV therapy, keeping hydrated, doing some extra vitamin C, eating some, whole food fruits and vegetables in season, as Jen and Christine were saying. I think those all make sense. And then another thing that we don't think about a lot is vitamin L, which is light. Having red light therapy or sunlight, just full spectrum sunlight, getting outside, is going to activate your mitochondria. It's going to reduce fatigue, body aches, and it's going to help your immune system, sending that message of safety to your cells when you go outside. So when, I think someone asked at the beginning, if the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer, right? That's even more, I guess, pressing or more important that we go outside before it gets dark. So that's super important. Hope that answered that question. Yeah. And then zinc a little bit too, I think would be important for COVID or, prevention, etc.
Great. So on the topic, like we were discussing with Shannon on fatigue and energy in general, Corey or Christine, if you have anything you want to throw in there, feel free.
Yeah, I just want to add just a couple of things. For fatigue and energy is giving yourself the gift of tea meditation, which is something that I like to do, choosing something like one of the plants that we talked about earlier, elder. Elder's a good one. Adding peppermint if you want to cool it down, or adding ginger and cayenne if you want to heat it up. But not just so much making it about the plants, but making it about the ritual of making the medicine. Choose a vessel, choose a cup that is inspiring or feels good in your hands, and take your time. Don't microwave the water, boil the water, enjoy the process, enjoy the smell, enjoy the heat that it brings, enjoy the comfort. All of these things, and even better, take it outside in the sunshine and take your shoes off and put your feet in the grass. And those things are nourishing, to our mind and to our body and to our spirit as well. So contributing to supporting the adrenals and reducing anxiety and giving you just a little boost. You know, not so great a physical activity, but something that is so good for your soul that you just feel refreshed.
Awesome. And we do, I think, Kelly, you have your hand raised, so I'm going to invite you to talk if that is what you we're looking to do with the raise hand. So if you want to talk, feel free to unmute yourself. And I think, oh.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. I've really been amazed and so happy to learn about these wonderful tips. And I'm looking forward to putting them into action. Just wonderful, wonderful words to move forward, as you said, as we go into the fall and winter seasons. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's talk about things like sore throat, body aches. I'm sure there are some herbs that can be helpful there. I don't know if there's anything from the acupuncture perspective that would be helpful in more of like the sore throat, body ache realm, if you want to share any of that.
You were talking to Corey, addressing.
Anybody, if you have any herbal side of things you want to share with that, feel free.
I can talk quickly about that. Again, you should always consult with your practitioner for infections, you know, sore throat, things like that. But wild cherry bark is good. The fire cider that you mentioned earlier is good. Any herbal tea with honey is good. Body aches, I will defer to Dr. Wong on that. That's indicative of something that it's probably beyond my scope. But and acupuncture, I know Corey would be excited to talk about that too with the body aches, I'm sure. For sore throat, another thing I just would add is anything that adds moisture, like marshmallow root, things that create moisture in the throat, honey, adding honey to your tea and things like that.
I'm really intrigued. I want to hear more because I know, Corey, you have done work with this, is creating that home in your mind. And I was wondering if you could possibly go into that a little bit for all of us.
Thank you, Shannon. That's a great, prompt for.
Yeah, I was, thinking about what to add. You know, as I was saying earlier, it's a lot about sort of the behaviors that we do and different things. But yeah, so I think this is less in the body ache category and more in sort of like the stress and the sort of mental game. You know, there's a lot going on in the world, and it's, you know, a lot of different things that can sort of stress and weigh on us. And I think of stress oftentimes as a teeter-totter. And so we've got like us on one end and all our stuff and our sort of life and the weight of it all on us. And then what sort of activities and behaviors are we doing on the other side of the teeter-totter to sort of balance that all out, right? And so it's rarely going to be one thing. You know, is it exercise? Is it good nutrition and good sort of foods? Is it some supplementation? These different things, mindfulness, all that sort of stuff. And so however much we weigh down on the other side, that's great. And the other strategy is to sort of lighten the load on your end. And so what can we do that with? And, you know, I kind of think of, you know, it's our obligations and our things that we've signed up for in life and situations, relationships, all that sort of stuff. But and those is what I would call like the backpack. It sort of builds the container for our life, but the meaning that we apply to these things is really what sort of fills up the backpack and puts like sort of weight and a load on us, you know. And so the meaning that we put on these things is really sort of what matters, and what takes, you know, two people doing the same situation, you know, one goes and works a job that they're really plugged into the purpose of, and another one that thinks it's just sort of busy work, you know, really makes a vastly different quality of experience for them. And that's the one that we actually can have a great effect over, is the sort of meaning that we place on this. And so mostly what I wanted to point out is just, you know, defining things, meanings, picking out the meanings that we've defined as sort of dangerous, or there's some sort of unfortunate consequence of where we're going or what it means for us, or if this were to happen, and to sort of, you know, spend a lot of time focusing on the sort of the worst case scenario or the negative outcome. You know, if we define that, and then we we sort of have to initiate all our resources on making sure that doesn't happen. You know, if you go talk to somebody and say, you know, what's the worst case scenario that could happen to you, they're probably going to be able to pull that out of their pocket in, you know, 5 or 10 seconds or less. But, you know, where are you going and what's the best case scenario? They're probably going to spend a couple days thinking about it, give you a couple different options, you know. And so it just depends on the person and whether you're doing this or not with your things in life. But, you know, to sort of look at the meanings that you've applied to things and where your focus is about that. You know, are we spending time really focusing on what we want to create, what sort of goals and aspirations and the good sort of outcomes, or are we really looking at sort of just avoiding the worst case scenario that we've defined so clearly, and spend a lot of time and resources on? So that really like loads the backpack full of weight and makes these somewhat could be inconsequential, or things that would never really or don't even happen, make a huge impact on our stress. Because if you think about the immune system, it's really about opening up your resourcefulness and taking away from the things that are sort of consuming your resources, and giving your immune system more resources to be able to work. So if you're spending all your resources in worry and fear of these things, you know, you're basically sort of opportunity costs sort of stealing away from what your immune system could have as a resource. Just like if you were to, you know, eat a food that you're sort of have an allergy to, it commands those resources to be sort of fighting that, when it should be, you know, something that could sort of omitted from your diet and could free up those resources. So it's sort of finding that sort of peaceful place and reframing things, or reorienting your perspective to really sort of cast a good light on things, you know, and bad things are happening. I'm not trying to sort of sugarcoat things, you know, but it's a lot of what the ability we have is to sort of, is the meaning that we place on them. So just to sort of, you know, you're in this relationship with your immune system and this relationship with your head, and you let some things slip through and you see sort of a dangerous outcome, and not just to not let that be sort of the only one that you see, to sort of say, you know, recognize that you see it, and we can also see all these other different outcomes, and which one do we really want to focus on and put our sort of, you know, put our effort and put our resources in manifesting. So that's sort of ideas around stress and our own sort of mental environment, creating the right environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey. That's extremely helpful. I think we all needed to hear that. I think it's
lighten the load.
We're carrying around a backpack full of mental rocks that we might want to put them in the stream and put our feet in the water and just enjoy the stream, maybe.
Yes.
It's a little river rock, better than the gravel.
River rock, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I found it ironic. I think, you know, talking about supporting our immune system and lowering stress is so important for that, as we've just talked about. But COVID itself, and just going into cold and flu season, and all of the circumstances that have come as a result of what we're experiencing, has just been so stressful on a million levels for everyone. So it's a tough time, but that perspective is really helpful.
Yeah, it's really compounded on us, you know, with all the different things that have sort of come one after another, you know, seeming like in our environment. And so, you know, it's our sort of duty to, you know, reorient and create the world that we want to sort of live in, and not let these sort of fears of an outcome that's undesirable for us, or that we've defined as dangerous, you know, to really sort of dominate our lives. So we'll make it through all this, you know, and then, and it's up to us to make sure that we do make it through in a positive and better space, you know.
Yeah, one of the things that just came to mind when you said that, Corey, too, is that, you know, we talk about health a lot of times as, you know, traditionally like individual health. You know, what's your cholesterol like? Have you had an exam recently? Like, all these things are really important, you know, which we do here. We talk about how we can help with, you know, supplements, with different practices, modalities. All these things are so helpful. But the third piece besides that is really the missing piece that we really need to complete the whole, you know, health and wellness experience, which is the community. which is what we're building here, we're doing today. So I want to thank everyone that's been listening, then participating. By logging in, you're already participating and taking time out of your day. I want to thank everyone here on the panel too, Jen, Shannon, Christine, Corey. It's amazing sage wisdom, as I think Sandy said, sage advice from everyone here, just learning so much, and being with all of you in community is so special. So thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So yeah, I think just if I feel like we should, who wants to have more panels? I'm ready for more of these. It's, at some point down the line, I think these are really great and really interactive. Yeah, thanks Christina for coming. Thanks Mustafa. Thank you everyone for all the questions and all the comments, all the nice, kind words too. We really appreciate it. It means so much to us, and just keep on doing this. And yeah, thank you, Jem, again for that. Yeah, and this is modern healthcare. What we're doing. This is getting ahead of the 8 ball. Really, and really focusing on wellness, like Corey said, unpacking the rocks that we don't necessarily need to carry. Right? Let's do some yoga in the river. Actually, I did some yoga one time in the stream. That was amazing. And just as long as I don't slip, right? but it's amazing to do that. And the creek. Yeah, have you done? Yeah. Tell us about that experience, Shannon, yoga in the river.
Well, it's the best of all things because you're connecting nature, breath, and all movement.
Right.
What else could you want?
Right. The sunlight, you have the fresh air.
Healthy beverage with herbs. And a nice meal. There you go.
And some nice Whole Foods. Do a little picnic out there after your yoga practice.
Let's do it.
Yes.
I think we maybe have one last question and then we'll wrap up. So there's a question about taking NAC and glutathione as supplements rather than injections or IV, I assume.
Absolutely. I mean, you can definitely do that orally. There are some absorption issues. There's a decreased bioavailability at that point, but you can use liposomal where it kind of melts under your tongue to go right into your veins. So you can definitely do it that way. You can also eat more cruciferous vegetables to help with the cysteine, which would help boost the NAC and glutathione indirectly. So you can do that too. All right, great. Well, we'll see you next week with Dr. Khalsa talking about Ayurvedic medicine. Thank you all for joining on the panel, and thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of the week, everyone.
It was a pleasure.